Welcome to the Urban Capital Podcast, intelligent conversations with Marceline, London, Midlands, North.
Hi, Janet, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on the Urban Capital Podcast show. So thank you for being here.
No worries.
Okay, so if you could just start off telling our viewers just a little bit about who you are and what you do in terms of your role.
So I am a serving police officer. I'm a detective sergeant. My role currently is as the chair for the Metropolitan Black Police Association, which is a staff support association, which is one of about 20 networks that we've got in the Met. And we also belong to the national body, which is the National Black Police Association. And that's my day-to-day role at the moment.
Okay, so what does that entail? So tell me what the Black Police Association is and sort of why is it required? What's its function?
So we were set up in, 1994. In fact, we were 25 years last year. We reached our 25th anniversary. But how we came about was roughly around in 1989. There was a small percentage of African, Caribbean and Asian officers within the Metropolitan Police where they wanted to sort of like find out from them what was inhibiting people from recruiting and, what issues they were facing within policing. Right. So they took them away in 1990 to Bristol Polytechnic. That now is referred to as the Bristol Seminars, where they took all those officers away, spoke to them, found out that there were things like obviously discrimination, racist discrimination going on and bullying. And from there, they wrote a report to try and make things better. The following year, 1991, because all the people that had gone there thought actually this would be really good to just keep in touch, find out, try and help each other along in terms of progression, and obviously what the communities were going through at that time, they formed themselves into what was more of a social network. And then in 1994, they launched as the Metropolitan Black Police Association, which then triggered other networks up and down the country in different constabularies to then sort of start their own networks, which is primarily about looking after people and officers and staff inside policing, but also addressing some of the community concerns that we have, especially where, there's this mistrust in terms of communities, Black communities and policing. It's about giving them the opportunity through the network to have their voices heard around some of the issues that they're facing.
Thank you. So, and you said it's been going 25 years, the Metropolitan Black Police Association, and you're its first female chair, aren't you? Is that correct?
Yes, wow. I am.
That's a massive achievement. What does that mean for you in terms of an achievement in your own career?
I don't really think about it. I know at the time when I stepped forward to be considered, because it's an elected post, so the membership elect you to be that. It's one of those things, as a woman, you face all of these sort of issues around, I'm not good enough and, oh my gosh, and all of these things. But I had a couple of good people around me who just put your name forward, who think you'd be good. So yeah, I did. And here I am. I got elected in 2013. We're now in 2020 and I'm the longest serving chair.
Wow.
Yes, even after all that time, I'm a bit sort of shocked myself. But I guess what it means is that, up until the point where I was chair, we were like 20 years of having all the men come before. So I guess it makes it for other women who see me in this leadership role something that is achievable and is sustainable. So I think a lot of the things in terms of having people and communities see us in these roles is inspirational. So I take that on board. And one of the good things as well is last year the Met celebrated 100 years of women in policing, and to be sort of like heading up the association at that time, again, feels really, really good. And I guess what I bring to the role is a female touch. We're not as adversarial. We think more inclusively around issues. So it does bring a different sort of vision, a different touch to doing my role in policing.
And with the Met people and such a long history of all male chairs, did it take the organisation getting used to once it was a woman that was a Hellman?
Wow, not to tell stories out of school. However, I faced a number of challenges which I hadn't done up until that point, in terms of being a woman in policing. So I guess in the broader policing world, it's quite male dominated anyway. But when you're a Black female, you face double challenges in terms of, your gender and your race. And from my perspective, the gender issues were being taken care of by my white counterparts. And for me, it was all about being Black. So being part of the BPA, you felt inclusive, you were dealing with the issues around, your race and ethnicity. But then being chair, I actually found out what it was like to have sexism sort of levied at you, because I hadn't really, if I'm genuine, I probably did have, but I didn't look on it that way, because obviously being Black first, it always seemed to be about that. But being within the association, actually being a woman was more of a challenge. And I'm pleased to say that 50% of our executive now are women. So we have 10 executives, all elected posts, and 50% of them are women, which is really good to see. Because as I say, we can add a lot of creativity to what we do.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So that's some progress then that you've seen since you've been since the BPA has existed. What other types of things do you feel have changed with the existence of 25 years? What major changes would you say you've witnessed?
So definitely within my time, it's not always reflective in the way you'd want it to be reflected. Internally, there was always a challenge. I called them invisible barriers to our progression, which had a lot to do with policy and practices that went with those policy that you didn't see unless you were someone being affected by that.
Right, yeah.
So bringing those to the table and allowing for policy to sort of weed those out has, for me, allowed for greater progression internally. And that also feeds into our recruitment as well, in terms of the sort of ideas that HR will use to try and attract people from ethnic minorities. So, for me, there has been some really broad thinking in terms of how we can, encourage more of our community to join And internally, we have seen that growth of progression from officers and staff. But again, we've still got a bit of a way to go. We're not there yet.
Yeah. I'm going to naturally, I'm going to obviously touch on more about the sort of police and the community, but just before we move on from the DPA and your experience as a black female officer.
Urban Capital, lifestyle, society, entertainment, news, politics, economics. Urban Capital, London, Midlands, North.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the question that I wanted to ask you is, often we, as people outside of the police force, often don't see the police or an individual police officer as just your normal human being who has a job, a family. You're going to work where you might experience things that I might experience in my media job, or in terms of human nature. So it's really important, isn't it? I think for people to understand that as police officers, you are people that are still going to work in an environment that still has issues that need sometimes to be addressed. And It's not a case of that because it's the police force that there are no issues. It's important to have an organisation like the DPA, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, you do. You get it sort of doubly, actually, because you can get it from within, but then you can get it from your own community who feel that, you've kind of sold out. But actually, what I will say about policing is that it's a really good career. And the only way really that we are going to improve it is if we get more people that look like us within. What I would say is that in terms of gender have now peaked at the tipping point for cultural change within organisations. And you can definitely see that and feel that within the Met. We've got our first female commissioner. And again, when we look at the range of positions that women hold within policing, that has definitely improved over the last 10 years. However, we still need to break that. We still need to get in there and do what needs to be done in terms of, ensuring that all communities get the service that is, that should be afforded to them from policing.
And what do you think the barriers are today in terms of going, or people from black and ethnic minority communities going into policing? Do you think it's that old stigma, that your experience as an officer and your role at the DPA in terms of recruitment and things like that? What would you say are the kind of key issues why people are not joining more in terms of
it's a difficult question because times have changed. When you think about the network, so for instance, you've got a lot of families. So you might have a dad that was in police and his son might join, or his daughter. And again, that's still quite a progressive way into policing. Whereas with black communities, you might not see a black police officer, you might not know one. So you might not have those networks to say, actually, it's all right within. And you're only seeing what you see on social media or some of the things that have gone wrong in policing, which could be putting people off. But now that we've got the sort of entry degree level at degree, then, hopefully we've got so many talented people out there with degrees who would absolutely benefit, even if it was for a short-term stint. So one of the recruitment drives that we have is Police Now, which allows you to come in to policing for 2 years. And it's almost like a try before you buy sort of attitude. If you come in and you like it, you stay. If you don't like it, you can go on and continue whatever it was that your degree was sort of like leaning you towards. And again, that has been really positive in terms of encouraging our most talented people into policing. And as I said, if you don't like it, then there's no real commitment on you to stay. But I think a lot of it is still some of the old stigma around that community and police relationship that exists, and that sort of like is handed down from generation to generation. And even if you might speak to a young Black person who's never been stopped before by police, he will give you examples of all his mates and friends and family that have been stopped, which is obviously playing on their mind. And obviously their friends, when I joined in 1991, because I've got 28 years service, people were put off by that. You lost people that were your friends who said, if you're going to be a police officer. So that still all accounts for it. But, 28 years on, to be fair, I've still got a lot of my friends that I started with. So.
Yeah, and as long as they're not breaking the law, because
absolutely. And that includes my mum.
Because I have heard that when, you talk to people sometimes, you say, why don't you ever consider something different, or, the police force, or as my last guest was talking about, I just interviewed Ryan Clements, who's a lawyer, a barrister, and we were talking about the number of Black or brown faces in the legal profession. We were saying you can't actually, if people aren't going into those roles, then we're not going to be there, even if the system was open to it. So it's really important that people start thinking like that, isn't it? And
definitely
change they can make.
You've got to be around that table, because that's the only way you start to influence change. So you've got to do it from within. And as I said, it's one of those. It's like any career, because I hear some horror stories about other companies that have got Black employees. We have a voice, and we're able to influence change and have the conversations, which can be uncomfortable sometimes, but at least they're being had. And
in actual fact, that's more that can be said for many organisations that shy away from it. And I think the police forces, it's important, isn't it, that it's getting it right and constantly scrutinising itself. Yeah,
definitely.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to come to asking you about, I guess, to talk to me about what's happening with coronavirus in a minute. But just before I move on to that, I just wanted to touch on a story that we reported on recently in the magazine. I know it's been very high profile, about Robin Williams, and just to find out how she's doing. I know that the case is finished, isn't it? I know there's other things technically going on, but in general, as a woman, as a person that's been through this, how is she, kind of getting on?
Yeah, she's coping with life. I think, someone with her character, she's so resilient, so resourceful that, something like this that has happened to her is not anything that will hold her back, because I think it's embedded in who she is as a person. So even though this has happened, and it's an absolute tragedy that it has, you can't do 36 years as an exemplary police officer and not carry away some life skills with that in order to sort of like continue and face all sorts of adversity. So, she's good overall.
Yeah, good. I wish her all the best as well. So, to see once she's, moved on through it all, what she does next, I'm sure she'll be an inspiration, whatever she's doing. So,
massively.
Great. So moving on to coronavirus. Brilliant. as I said to you before, there's lots of things, information going around. One particular topic of conversation are changes in the law, changes in police powers. Some people are feeling really anxious about the whole thing, because they don't understand if the changes are real. They don't understand what they are.
We came from the stars to elevate this planet.
400 BCE, Kemet had already went through 29 so-called dynasties. 4,000 years of existence. And you start with the Greeks?
What would you say in general to people right now, particularly starting with the law and the changes that have been, or new powers that have been given to police officers?
Well, one of the things I would say is that, we're all having to do things differently. There's myself, there's my executive who are frontline police officers and staff. We're all having to do things so differently. But the main key thing is that the government are giving us the guidelines. And as much as there are going to be conspiracy theories, which we can't do much about, I would always take the time before, because you can't help who sends you things on your phone. So sometimes you are going to be clicking away and you'll be reading stuff where you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure about that. But I would say in the first instance, don't forward anything that you think is slightly off key on, but also then, go to one of the government ghost websites, go to the Met Police website, go to, a source that you trust to give you information which is going to be correct. Police officers have been asked to do, a job of work in terms of trying to encourage people to stay home. And that is the key thing there. You're going to see, unfortunately, videos where things have gone wrong and people put that down to, I was just, going about my daily business. But with all these things, you always get sort of like the middle part of the picture. You don't get the whole picture. Yeah. And I just urge people to be mindful of that in terms of it. We have been given very specific briefings around our engagement with community in terms of COVID-19. And that is one about encouraging people, because clearly, asking people to remain in their homes, 24/7 effectively, whilst, the NHS and the other professionals try and deal with this. It's tough. Yeah. I'm fortunate enough. I've been working from home since this started. It's tough. Yeah. But I don't have the additional, pressures of having children, or, I've got a husband, which is just as bad. But, but do you know what I mean? There are broader things that will be impacting on everyone's lives, which, police officers are no different. We're having to work under these conditions as well. We'll have families at home. We'll be having to come out. So no one wants to be heavy-handed about this. And all we're asking is that people are calm. If you are approached, then actually just everyone needs to be calm. I think that is the key thing for police officers, that when we're engaging, that it's just one about encouragement. It's one about just reiterating why this needs to happen. And as soon as those restrictions are reduced or relaxed, then, everyone will be in a better space. But until that point, it's the best for everyone. It's about keeping everyone's safe, and it's about protecting the NHS.
What's your advice in terms of, how could I support someone, or, what can a person do if they're in a situation where they're in the house with their abuser? Again, I know this is not here's a solution, but what would your advice be as a to that person in terms of what they might think about doing? Or
definitely seek advice. A lot of domestic violence isn't initially reported to police. So if someone's going through that, it wouldn't be the first time. So I would definitely, there are so many organisations out there that are still working through this, voluntary organisations, volunteers, and there is loads of advice in terms of what you can do, where you can go, who you can speak to on the internet. I don't have any specifics at the moment, but obviously this has raised, and there's been a lot of talk, as you say, and conversation about domestic violence, but there is help out there. You don't have to sit there and accept that abuse, albeit, yes, we are in this restriction, but for policing, it's business as usual. So if someone is being abusive to you, it is still right and proper that you can call police and have that handled. Don't think that everyone's dealing with COVID. Policing are doing their business as usual. So all of the issues that we were dealing with before, we are dealing with now, and that is one of them. So what I would say is don't feel that you're being a burden. Don't feel that it's too small for policing to come out and deal with. We deal with it. And it's just a matter of, if you want to make that call, make that call. And it will be dealt with professionally by the officers that come and speak to you about it.
I think something really important that you said there as well is that those organisations that are set up to support people in that situation are still functioning and still out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, just raising the sort of like conversation bit around how this is, it's not just because of what the restrictions we find ourselves in. This is happening every day. So, we don't want it just highlighted now and then once it's over, it's forgotten about. This is something that, campaigners will be, pushing forward for the future as well.
Yeah. And another one that's a very difficult one, I think it's important just so that people can have some, good information from somebody like yourself. So there are children that are finding themselves in, stuck in a situation where their school would normally be that buffer perhaps, or being able to go out in the evenings, whereas of course now that's not possible. So again, what would your advice be in terms of what they could do if they were worried or concerned?
And again, kids are quite, they trust, do you know what I mean, certain people in their lives. And, if you're a child and you're going through that, whoever that trusted person is, find a way to contact them. I mean, most kids these days have, a mobile, or they have some sort of device that they can. But if you don't, then again, find, if you need to, then you can contact police. You can contact us from the Met BPA, because, we'll be able to deal with things not in a sort of, in your face, I guess, sort of way, in terms of just having those conversations. We've got a Staff Support Association hub that are set up to take calls from all the associations. But again, if you wanted to, the three women that are in there, Tracy, Deborah and Meninda, and you wanted to speak to someone, again, I can give you the telephone number, and, they can be contacted and spoken to, and we will get, the relevant people or the relevant advice to you. But I think the key thing is that no one should be going through any sort of abuse on their own. And that, all you have to do is, I guess, is look. and you will find someone that is prepared to help you. And that's what I guess we do in the BPA, is that sometimes people don't want to go directly to the police, and we are that conduit between sort of like the community and police in order to get something resolved, which it can be, you know, there's quite a few taboo subjects within, you know, Black communities where, you know, we feel that people won't understand us if we're going to explain what it is. But in the BPA, as I said, we've got quite a diverse group of women there who understand most of our cultural issues, and that will be able to give the relevant advice, or if they don't have it, they will find it out and make sure that you get the relevant information. Yes.
And in this case, right now, particularly around sort of young Black men, is where I'm going to pose my question. Have you seen, I'm presuming so, because the streets are quiet, have you seen them kind of, they're retreated from the streets, those that were out there and doing nonsense? You know, so has there been any sort of drop in crime in that side of things?
So I've been off for the last week, so most of my news has come from the TV, but Martin Hewitt, who is the chair for the National Police Chiefs, he was reporting that there has been a drop in crime. So it would tend to factor in that, you know, people being off the street has reduced, you know, the crime that we were experiencing prior to going into the lockdown, you know, which is, I suppose, all in all a good thing. However, where they're reporting, I suppose, slightly higher crime, or they're putting out warnings where there potentially could be higher crime, is around obviously the internet and the fraud that will happen on the internet.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes we feel that all the crime goes on outside when actually sometimes it can happen in your homes. So there's been quite a few warnings. You know, every time I log on to my bank, they're warning me, you know, be careful about this, be careful about that. And a lot of the, you know, companies that are out there on the World Wide Web are putting out those warnings. So I would also be mindful that fraud potentially could be going up. I don't know the figures on that, but it's just another warning that needs to go out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So being vigilant, really, isn't it? And I suppose whilst we're all at home, if or where possible, kind of looking out for neighbours and things like that as well, I suppose. Is
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, in a way, this whole lockdown scenario has brought about this sense of community, this sense of actually getting to know your neighbour, and say, as you say, just checking in on people, which is a really good feeling, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And is there any other, you know, anything else with regards to the lockdown at the moment that, you know, again, you're going to know more of the layers than I do about what, you know, the potential negative issues that it can cause?
By staying at home and, you know, protect the NHS in terms of, you know, getting, you know, staying away from there because you're doing what needs to. And I think, you know, people are doing that, which is fantastic. And, you know, I don't think we're thanking people enough for doing that. You know, it's always like, do this, do that, do the other. But actually, from a policing perspective, I will say thank you for everyone that is doing that. You know, it's difficult if you've got teenage kids or any kind of kids, to be honest, to keep them at home. So from that perspective, I would definitely give a big thank you to everyone that is seeing this through, because, you know, we have no choice. And, you know, that is a reflection. When it starts to relax, it will be a reflection on the fact that everyone has done what they needed to do to see us through this.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Janet. And thank you for doing the interview. It's been absolutely
thank you.
I feel inspired.
Oh, thank you.
And so just before I let you go, if there is anyone that I would like to think about joining the police force, or I'd like to consider that 2 years scheme perhaps and just see what it's all about. But what would your advice be? Where do they start? Is then they go to the BPA website?
Right.
Or?
Yeah, so what I would do is go to the Metropolitan Police website. There are a number of entry points. So back in the day when I joined, you had to join as a constable in uniform.
Yeah.
That has all changed. You can join now direct as a detective, which is what I am at the moment. I'm a detective sergeant. You can join as a detective constable or a trainee detective constable without doing the uniform bit, and go straight into investigating crime. So I would go to the website. As I said, you've got police now, you've got the normal level of entry, you've got direct entry for detectives, and there's just a range of ways now. And to be fair, you don't always have to join as a police officer. Yeah. Our police staff who do back office jobs, HR and other bits and pieces, even, staff that work within the sort of jailer, we call them jailers, but within the sort of where the prisoners are kept and stuff, in custody. There are so many ways that you can join policing. So that would be my first port of call. Yeah. I would then say, if you were someone that actually didn't know much about policing yourself and you were from a minority community, then the Staff Support Associations, so we have a network for virtually everything. We've got disabilities, we've got faith-based, we've got race-based. So we can find you a mentor that can speak to you about joining, what it's like for them in terms of doing the job and doing, going into communities and doing the job internally. So there are loads and loads of ways. You don't have to wait until you hit the door to find all of that out. There are ways in which you can find out before you come in, and we can help in that way. So our number at the Staff Support Association Hub is 0207 941 0941. So I will just check that, actually, because when you're sort of reading things out, you're like, is that right? So it's 0207 94. I'm going to be completely, but what I'll do is I will pass it on to you anyway, so to make sure.
We'll put it out.
Our email address is info@metbpa.org.uk. So again, if you want to email in, you can do that too. But, you don't necessarily have to be black. You can be of any hue whatsoever. We will find you, if you want someone to speak to about joining, what it's really like from a first-hand practitioner, then we can find you that person to speak to so that you're not facing it alone. Sometimes it's nice to have someone inside that's actually putting an arm around you and just saying that, things will be fine.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate the fact that you guys had time today. So thank you once again, Janet. I look forward to hopefully, catching up with you again, either on another podcast or perhaps in the magazine at some point. So no
worries. Thank you for interviewing me.
No problem.